Have you ever had the strange feeling that there are different versions of yourself living completely distinct realities? Perhaps, at some point, you experienced such an intense déjà vu that you almost managed to envision another you making decisions that don't seem to be part of your current story. And what if I told you that this feeling might be much more than just an impression? Today, we're going to embark on a surprising journey through the universe of parallel realities. Get ready to discover how these alternative versions of us can not only coexist in various dimensions but also directly influence our daily lives. We often go through inexplicable events, intense dreams that seem to hold profound messages, sudden intuitions that change the course of our decisions, synchronicities that leave us with the sensation that something greater is guiding us. What few people realize is that these clues may be directly related to contact with other dimensions. In today's video, I will provide a clear and accessible perspective on how all of this works, no beating around the bush, no fluff. If you want to go beyond the limits of your current understanding of the spiritual world and would like to learn how communication between parallel realities can contribute to your personal growth, stay with us until the end. Together, we'll explore fascinating concepts and, who knows, uncover signs that you never even realized were there all along. To better understand the subject, let's define what we call parallel realities. Simply put, imagine that every decision you've ever made, or haven't made, could have generated an alternative timeline. In each of these timelines, there is a you who decided differently and is therefore living distinct experiences. Over the decades, both science and philosophy have raised theories about the possibility of parallel universes, each one with its own version of reality. In certain theories of quantum physics, it's suggested that multiple universes might exist, with each particle being able to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Taking that concept a step further indicates that, on a macroscopic level, we could have an infinite number of realities, each governed by its own laws or variations of the laws we know. From a spiritual perspective, many believe that our consciousness is not limited to a single plane of existence. Thus, while we're living our daily lives, there could be other dimensional layers where parts of our essence also operate simultaneously. But how does this affect us directly? Think of that moment when you felt inclined to take a completely different path than usual, with no apparent reason, and ended up discovering something surprising or avoiding a problem. Some say that, in such instances, you're receiving a subtle nudge or guidance from a version of yourself who has already experienced that situation in another reality. Although this idea may seem fantastic, it opens up new possibilities for understanding events that, at first glance, have no logical explanation. If you want to continue exploring mysteries like this, just stay with us and follow the rest of the script. That way, you'll learn about various aspects of spiritual worlds and parallel realities that will change the way you see your own life. At some point, consider the idea of receiving notifications for new content, because we might reveal topics at any time that deeply touch your heart and personal experience. Now that we have a foundation regarding parallel realities, we can delve into one of the most common signs of connection with these other planes, vivid dreams. If you've ever woken up remembering every detail of a dream that felt more real than waking life itself, know that this type of experience might carry messages from other versions of yourself. Some people report dreams in which they see themselves going through situations that never occurred in their official life, yet somehow those scenarios feel remarkably familiar. For instance, you might dream of living in a city you've never physically visited, but the sense of belonging there is undeniable. Many researchers and mystics see these reports as indicative of temporary access to memories of other existences happening in parallel. Our dreams serve as a kind of bridge between the conscious mind and the deeper regions of the unconscious. If we consider that the unconscious can also store information from parallel dimensions, it makes sense to think that while we sleep, we're more open to receiving insights from other selves. Therefore, those messages that appear in dreams can be seen as advice, warnings, or lessons. To better understand whether your dream is simply the subconscious processing day-to-day life or if it holds a deeper message, pay attention to the following aspects. Emotional intensity. if you wake up feeling a very strong emotion, be it joy, fear, nostalgia, or relief, that's a sign there was a significant connection. Clarity of details. Dreams that feature a wealth of details, colors, smells, sounds, and tactile sensations often carry important messages. Narrative coherence. Even though it's a dream, if it tells a story with a beginning, middle, and end, it might indicate something beyond everyday mental processing. It's always worthwhile to write these dreams in a journal as soon as you wake up, because the details tend to fade quickly. By reviewing these notes, you might identify patterns or recurring messages, recognizing that there's something to be decoded below the surface. If dreams are a kind of nighttime portal, then intuition and synchronicities are the signs that emerge during the day. How many times have you had a strong feeling about a person or situation that turned out to be correct soon afterward? Or noticed a sequence of coincidences so specific that they seemed like messages directed solely at you? Intuition can be seen as a form of knowledge that arises without the mediation of logical reasoning. From the perspective of parallel realities, this inner voice may be the echo of experiences another version of you has already lived. For instance, if in a parallel universe you faced a particular challenge and found an effective solution, that information might reach you in the form of a sudden insight. As for synchronicities, these are those meaningful coincidences that give us the impression there is an intelligence orchestrating events. It could be repeatedly encountering the same word, number, or person in different contexts, drawing your attention in a striking way. When it comes to parallel realities, this can happen when two or more timelines draw closer energetically, allowing certain events or signs to manifest noticeably. A simple example: you're researching a specific topic and suddenly receive a call from someone discussing exactly that subject. Or perhaps you're thinking about a person you haven't seen in years, and the next day you run into them at the supermarket. These moments suggest a convergence of realities or a subtle communication between dimensions. If you pay attention, you'll notice that these phenomena occur more often in your life than you might think. And whenever you perceive this kind of occurrence, it's worth investigating whether there's a message there. It could be an invitation to change direction, revisit a forgotten project, or even reassess personal priorities. Through these subtle connections, we can discover opportunities for growth that would otherwise remain unnoticed. You've probably gone through times when, out of nowhere, your way of thinking or acting changed drastically. Maybe you started liking something you used to dislike, or developed an aversion to activities you once enjoyed. These shifts can happen for countless reasons, like maturity, trauma, or outside influences. But there's also a possibility that these sudden changes might be linked to the influence of other realities. Imagine that in a parallel timeline, you developed a deep passion for art and dedicated your life to painting. Even though you have no inclination towards art in your current version, it's possible that at times, a part of that skill suddenly manifests, whether it's through a desire to paint or a creative impulse that's never shown up before. This kind of seemingly unexplained change might indicate that those other versions are communicating or even merging energetically with you. These awakenings of new skills or behavior changes can also appear in contexts like food preferences. Suddenly, you feel disgusted by meat or discover that you love spicy food, even though you've avoided those foods your whole life. Interests and hobbies. You develop an interest in reading about a topic that never caught your attention before, and you find yourself devouring books and documentaries on that subject. Life goals. Out of the blue, you decide to change your career, city, or even country, feeling like it's now or never. These transformations can be subtle or intense, often occurring during periods of greater spiritual or emotional openness when we're more susceptible to external influences. If you notice yourself going through a process like this, try to see it not as something confusing, but as an opportunity to discover unexplored aspects of yourself. By embracing these changes, you can align even more with your essence, including those parts that might be manifesting from other realities. After all, why is it important to recognize and welcome the signals from parallel realities? First, because each version of ourselves carries unique learnings. If we make space for these insights, we might shorten the path to certain achievements. For instance, if one of your versions has already overcome a complex challenge, you might receive tips on how to tackle that obstacle in your present. Secondly, integrating these aspects can facilitate deep personal and spiritual growth. When we start to understand that we are not isolated beings in a single universe but rather consciousnesses that can branch out into multiple dimensions, we begin to appreciate the power of choice, the importance of self-awareness, and the humility in recognizing the vastness of existence. An exercise that can help in this integration process is meditation focused on the intention of connecting with these other selves. You can imagine, for a few minutes, that you're facing different versions of yourself. Try to visualize them, taking your time to notice what they wear, how they act, and what energy they emit. Then, visualize a loving exchange of experiences, where each version shares what they've learned in their respective universe. This technique not only expands your perception of yourself but can also bring immediate insights on how to handle everyday issues. Remember, this process doesn't need to be complicated. Simply staying aware of your dreams, intuitions, and synchronicities is already a powerful path. Over time, you'll start to piece together the puzzle and realize that everything is part of the same flow. If at any point you feel like deepening this understanding, just keep an eye out for other learning opportunities that might arise, just like continuing to follow this space, where we regularly share deep themes and reflections on the spiritual universe. We've reached a crucial point, and you might already realize that the idea of parallel realities isn't just some distant or mystical theory. On the contrary, it can subtly manifest in your life through dreams, intuitions, and synchronicities that we often ignore just because we don't fully understand them. In every choice we make, there's potentially a new fork in the road, and each fork can create a new world where another version of ourselves carries on with a different story. Before we wrap up, let's briefly recap what we've covered so far. First, we talked about the definition of parallel realities, touching on ideas from both science and philosophy. Then, we understood how vivid dreams can serve as a channel to receive messages from other dimensions, allowing significant insights to reach our conscious mind. Next, we saw how intuition and synchronicities are valuable signs pointing to communication between parallel versions of ourselves. We also discussed sudden behavioral changes that might signal the influence of other selves, and concluded by explaining the relevance of integrating these experiences for our personal and spiritual growth. Now, I invite you to reflect on this. What recent events in your life might have been a message from parallel realities? Could a striking dream, a synchronicity, or a sudden change in behavior contain a lesson you haven't noticed yet? These questions encourage us to approach life with more openness and curiosity, recognizing that we might be part of a much larger and interconnected universe than we ever imagined. If this content sparked your curiosity and resonates with what you've been experiencing, consider following future discussions on the topic. That way, you won't miss any updates on spiritual phenomena, interpretations of signs, and other insights that can further illuminate your path. And if you feel like it, leave a comment sharing if you've had any experiences that echo what we've discussed here. Sharing stories is a powerful way to discover how connected we all are. The journey never really ends. But for today, let's close this chapter with a message. Allow yourself to explore new perspectives, stay attuned to the signs, and trust the intuition that comes to you in almost magical ways. After all, the universe might be speaking to you in various ways, and listening to that voice could be the missing step to transforming how you are and how you live.